What?
I was just waiting for you to start. There's nothing.
I was waiting for you to giggle. Okay. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to Opinion Havers.
Yeah.
It's a movie podcast.
It is.
Me, Cody.
And Tyler.
That's Tyler.
I am Tyler.
I am Cody.
That is Cody.
Or
is it?
They'll never know.
They won't know. You'll never know.
What did we see today, Tyler?
We saw A Quiet Place.
You know what I was thinking about?
What were you thinking about?
I was thinking about how some movie podcasts, they play like parts of the trailer. And I was thinking how that wouldn't work for this movie at all, because there's not a word said in the trailer.
Here, wait. Let me play you an excerpt from the trailer. So what did you think of that little excerpt from the trailer?
Just from that trailer, I thought it looked very promising, and then it looked really exciting.
It did look exciting.
So
I think I gave the plot synopsis.
Oh, it's my turn to do the 30-second plot? All right.
So you got 30 seconds. Go.
All right. Quiet Place is about a family living in a post-apocalyptic future. Very short after, I think they were in upstate New York, where they have to be super, super quiet because there is a monster that hunts sounds.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that's...
I mean, that is the movie. You just spoiled the whole movie.
I think... I disagree. I think that was our best 30-second or less plot
I'd say
ever.
less. I'd say less. But, yeah, I mean, that sums it up. What were your kind of first... what did you... Or first of all, as we kind of started, it was a couple podcasts ago, we got there kind of late. Was there any of the trailers that we saw? I think we saw 2 or 3 of them that stuck out to you.
Trailers? Well, we saw the trailer for Isle of Dogs, but we already did that one.
We did, and it was a good one.
That was a great one. What was the other trailers? There was a horror. There was another.
You think I know?
There was another horror movie.
It was a horror TV show, I think.
Is it a TV show?
Yeah, because it said IFC.
No.
Which is it?
It's an independent film channel, but they produce movies.
Oh, so it may have been.
It was like IFC
movie.
Midnight.
Yeah.
Oh, it had the kid from the End
Fantastic
of the Effing World.
Beasts. Oh, that one. Yeah.
Is that the same kid?
I
haven't seen Fantastic Beasts.
I thought it was the guy from Fantastic Beasts.
The kid is in Dandy the Effing World. He might be in both. I don't know. The British kid, young kid, dark hair.
Yeah.
Had that kid. It had who's the big guy in it? There's some A-lister.
Martin Freeman.
Martin Freeman's in it.
Yeah, which I
looked interesting.
Seeing him and it makes me want to go see it.
Maybe if we knew the name of it, we could. Do you remember the name?
It was something like Ghost Stories or something.
Yeah, Ghost Stories. That was
Ghost Stories.
It looked interesting.
And it looks like it follows this guy that debunks ghost stories across
the paranormal investigator, or not even that, because you said he debunks. It seems like he's a debunker. And
then he gets sent. It looks like by another paranormal investigator. These 3 cases that guy couldn't debunk.
And that dude's like, turns out
stuff's real.
Stuff's real. Yeah.
So it does look good. I looked at you very excitedly because we were in a horror movie, and that was another horror movie.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we will go see this. Much like, what is it, Hereditary? Hereditary, there you go.
I don't know if I've seen the trailer for that.
Oh, you did, and you cried a little bit, and I said, we're going to see that, and you said, absolutely not. And yes, we will see it. It's the grandma that hunts and kills, or haunts everybody.
No, I'm not seeing that.
Oh, yes, we are.
That looks messed up.
Yes.
That looks like The Exorcist meets, by the way, your grandma has a demon in her. That's awful.
It was like The Exorcist, and was that movie The Visit, where he goes to visit the possessed grandparents?
Nah, I don't want any of that.
Yes.
No way.
Tweet at Cody.
The only reason I agreed to see this one is because Jim's in it.
Jim's in it.
I mean, for Jim Halpert. So I'll see Jim Halpert. He'll comfort me.
He did not.
Well,
I mean, he was comforting up until he wasn't.
Okay. Well, before we get into any major plot points, why don't you tell me what your thought about Quiet Place? First impressions.
I thought it was a very well done movie. Like, as I was kind of sitting thinking about, I thought it could have very easily relied on jump scares alone to make it a horror movie.
Right.
But I always get got by jump scares, but this is the first time like I was genuinely scared by the jump scares. I didn't just jump. I was like, and I was like waiting for it to happen, and you knew it was going to happen, and it just like balled you up inside, and you were scared of the monsters, and you like, I liked how even though everybody was completely quiet, they did a real good job of like emoting.
Yeah.
Like, you chuckled, but it's in the trailer the moment where he like turns to his daughter and is like, don't move, after they like set fire with when they're playing Monopoly. They knock over a lantern.
Yeah, that's in the trailer.
And like the panic in his eyes, I'm like, if I saw my dad with that much panic in their eyes, like I would freak out.
Yeah.
Like when I was a little kid, like that would scare the crap out of me.
Right, because your parents are always so like calm, cool, because they're adults.
Yeah.
You know what's going on. So when they're freaked out, you're like, oh no.
Yeah, and you could see like he was like, if you don't stop effing moving right now, we are all gonna die.
Yeah. I'd agree with a lot of you said. I thought it was very well done. I think it had just enough plot to make it interesting, and you kind of wanted to keep watching, find out what happens. I almost could have gone with it being a little longer, but I think it was more or less a good length. Like
it did feel very short.
It felt pretty short, so maybe it could have been longer. But I mean, the good news is it didn't drag on.
Yeah, it left me wanting more of this. Like, I'm excited for him to do other styles of movies, but I hope he does more horror movies because I think he did a really good job.
Yeah. I wonder if this is going to be the start of like a horror renaissance. Considering Get Out got Best Original Screenplay last year, and its Metacritic score is like 81, which is 82 which is crazy for a horror movie.
Yeah.
And it's PG-13, which means it's doing well. It's doing better at the box office because you could take younger kids to it. So anyway, I think if you're a fan of the genre, I think you'd enjoy it, and you should check it out. And even if you're unsure about it, it's pretty well done.
Yeah, don't go if you got heart problems though.
No.
Oh my gosh.
When we were leaving, we were in the bathroom, and one of the guys who was in the movie was like, "I need a massage after that." Like, I'm all tensed up, and I agreed. Like the whole time, you're like straightening your neck, and you're all tight. And you're like, "Oh no."
Yeah, you were very, very tense. I noticed. Like, I was doing pretty good, and then there towards the end of the movie, I realized I folded my arms, and I was doing the equivalent of, like, white knuckling, but just with my arms folded.
Yeah.
And, like, when I let go, like, all my skin was stuck together and everything from how hard I've been pressing my arms together because I was freaking out so much.
Well, too, every time I looked over to you, you were covering your...
Oh, I just say it like that usually. But, yeah,
But it looked like, at one point, you had two hands over your mouth.
I had to fight the urge so hard to cover my eyes so many times.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to cover my eyes. I'm like, no, you are not going to puss out on this movie. You're going to watch that monster kill somebody, and you're going to like it. But, yeah, so I did do a lot of the, like, classic, like, hands over the mouth, like, you know.
Yeah. All right. You think it's time to dive in a little more?
I mean, we've hit our normal... Well, no. Is it, though?
Is it what?
Is it time?
Is it time?
Is it time to put on our hats and our life jackets and jump on the spoiler cruise ship?
I mean, I think so.
Destination Spoiler Town, USA?
Isn't that where we went last time by train?
Yes.
Now we're going.
That's always the
now
destination.
We're
it's
going
just different modes of transportation.
So, all right. So it's on the coast. Spoiler Town, USA.
I
just want to be clear.
There are many Spoiler Town, USA.
Okay. All right. Let me tell you. Let me ask you about a certain moment.
All right.
This is a spoiler.
Is it a spoiler?
Well, I don't know.
I don't want the movie spoiled for me.
It's the first scene.
Okay.
The end of the first scene. They're leaving the store.
Right.
They just had a big scare. The youngest son, who's maybe 2 or 3 years old, is trying to get a rocket off of a shelf.
Yes.
It falls. His sister catches it before it hits the ground. Like, his dad.
Sweet slide, by the way.
Oh, great slide, great catch, nice and quiet.
Yeah.
As you must be. And John Krasinski's character says, like, you can't take the rocket. It's too loud. He doesn't say it, he signs it, right? The sign language is too loud, sorry. After they leave, the kid, his sister who caught the rocket, gives it back to him. And, like, it's okay. It'll be our little secret. Only no secrets are to be had. Because, like, 2 minutes later, that rocket goes off. What did you think when that kid got snatched up?
Well, to quote myself in the car, what I wanted to do was lean back and go, "What?" And I didn't do that.
Right.
What I did was go, that's what I did.
It was crazy. You know what was crazy about that? What I appreciate about that moment is that from the very start when he got the rocket and when his sister gave it back to him, I was like, oh, that's going to come up later in the movie. And I thought that was going to be like a plot device that like leads into the third act or something. And then like 30 seconds later, it like that's the demise of that kid. Yeah. And that really set the mood for the rest of the movie, I thought.
Yeah. And if you remember, the rocket is in the trailer. Like him playing with the rocket and making noise.
Yeah.
Like, or the space shuttle. It's not a rocket, it's a space shuttle. To be clear, it's a space shuttle. And him, like, John Krasinski's character, which you don't find out his name, I think, until the credits.
He's got names in the credits, but they
never use them. And
because I guess they already know each other's names.
Yeah, there's no reason for them to say them, I guess. But he's like racing the monster, and the implication I felt like based on kind of the types of, you know, just like most movies of horror movies with kids and stuff, that he's gonna beat the monster, save the kid, and they're gonna like run, and there's gonna be this thing happen, you know. But he doesn't beat the monster. The monster gets the kid.
Oh yeah.
And he kills him.
Yeah.
Real dead.
Yeah, so I thought that was a pretty cool opening scene.
It was. It really was like, by killing off like the tiny cute little kid, it was like, all right, nobody's safe. Anybody, there at any moment someone can die. Which they really made you tense, even though no one died until like the very end of the movie, aside from the old guy.
Right.
In the woods, like he died, but you kind of saw that. Even that was in the trailer. That, you know, because he meets him, and it's supposed to show like some people are just done and they give up, and giving up means making noise.
Yeah.
So.
Man. Yeah, I thought that was a pretty cool opening.
Yeah, I also liked the audio bit whenever it was showing stuff from the daughter's point of view, they just removed the sound or turned it way down.
All sound was gone.
Yeah.
Which was kind of cool because you were seeing the world through her perspective.
Yeah.
She's deaf.
Which I thought that came together real like suspensefully when they were in the cornfield and the monster was right behind her.
Oh my goodness.
And she couldn't tell because they're freaking loud. These monsters that hunt with sound are insanely loud.
They make like that clicking sound too. Like they're big.
Yeah. They so people can hear them coming from a mile off, but she can't. So she just thinks her hearing aid's busted and messing with her, and it scares away the monster.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting shot. She's like, oh, he can't see, but she can, and she can't hear, but he can.
Yeah,
it's really interesting.
If they teamed up, it'd be the ultimate buddy cop movie.
That's gonna be the sequel.
Yes,
just her riding that thing into town, delivering justice.
Yeah. Do you know?
It's gonna be an Infinity Wars.
What? Okay, so the monsters.
You're thinking about what kind of hat she would wear when she's riding him.
I mean, I wasn't, but now I am.
Would she have a saddle? Wouldn't she have a saddle? What kind of hat would she have?
I don't know. Do you need a saddle? They got some pretty intense little slots on their shoulders.
You can grab on. I picture like, Jessie from Toy Story. That like red hat with like the white lace. I feel like that she'd have a hat like that.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, I could definitely see that.
Sorry, you were going somewhere.
I was going somewhere.
I derailed you.
You did, but it's fine because that's what this podcast is all about. That's what we get paid the big bucks for.
Yeah, to derail one another. To have no topic, no consistent line of thought.
So can I tell you something I was completely unprepared for in this movie?
What? Oh, the glasses came off. All right, here we go.
Are you familiar with a game called Dead Space?
Oh, that's one where they're in space, right?
And everything's dead?
Yes.
Yes.
It's like a scary. That's when like you're an engineer on this space shuttle. There's been like a crazy monster attack or something. Is that one?
Everything is changed into what's called necromorphs by a thing called the Spire, I believe it's what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some terrifying necromorphs that have these big, like, knife spine legs that move real fast.
Oh.
And they're just like real fast at you.
Great.
And I played Dead Space all the time with my friends when I was in high school. And I'm pretty sure at some point, on some level, we all mentally scarred ourselves by playing so much of that game in the middle of the night and purposely trying to make it more terrifying for each other.
Right.
And the fact that these monsters looked an awful lot like those necromorphs made it so much... The second I saw it, I was just like, this was a bad decision.
Oh, yeah.
I brought Cody here to scare him, and I'm very uncomfortable because someone took something that I could have a disconnect from because it was a video game and I could easily kill them and they didn't look that great, to something that looks really real and is killing real people. And I'm like, oh, this is terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it almost was like this was inspired by the necromorphs. And I kept thinking about Dead Space because Dead Space is also, it's in video game form, not in movie form. Mm-hmm. But it's also real good at, you know the jump scare is coming. It may or may not, but you feel a moment that's really primed for it. And it makes you tense because you get the feel of the rhythm of the writers of the game. And they're really good at how they pace everything to... It gave me the same feelings, and I was just like, oh, this is a bad time for me.
Oh, yeah.
This is a bad time for little old Tyler.
I thought the way they built to the jump scares, like, you knew they were there, but where other movies rely very heavily on the music, the sound and music in this was very minimalistic, I thought.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't... I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm not, like, a horror movie aficionado, but the ones that I have seen, I felt like the jumps here were... Because there was so much more silence, it was like they could have happened at any time. Whereas other horror movies, you're like, okay, it's building, and this is the jump scare moment.
Yeah, and even parts that weren't necessarily scary would make you jump. Like, when going back to when they set the fire on accident, and he's like checking out the window to see if something came.
Gosh, yeah.
And the freaking raccoons. I like how they were like, oh, the raccoons were on the roof. No, it was a monster on the roof. Mm-hmm. The raccoons just fell in front of the window. Spoiler alert. Raccoons do not make that much noise and do not go across metal with claws because
I've got a question for you.
They're fat raccoons.
What sounds do raccoons make?
They go like... I don't know.
You really committed to the scrapey sound, but I feel like with the raccoon thing you kind of...
Well, because I usually don't hear them make sound. They usually just run away from me.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they make this, like, they make sounds. The two raccoons, as they're walking away, they make noises.
And ultimately, that's their demise.
Yeah, they one gets smashed. Oh, it just gets squished, which makes me think: do these monsters eat people, or do they just kill things?
Yeah.
Because I feel like the implication in, like, it looked like it took the kid. And when it killed the one dude, it looked like it stopped and, like, started eating him. Mm. But then, like, the guy's wife just had a big old gouge out of her side.
Yeah.
Like, so do they eat people and animals and stuff, or do they just kill things?
That's a good question.
It is a good question. It's a fantastic question.
All right. We're going to write John Krasinski.
I would love to. John, if you are listening to this podcast, first of all, I think you're a fantastic actor and now a fantastic director. And I would love for you to come on and explain to me the monsters, because they're going to keep me up for quite a long time. And I would like to know everything about them.
We'll do A Quiet Place, Part 2.
Yeah. If John Krasinski will come on, then we will do a second viewing of the movie. I will sit through the movie again, terrified. And I will talk about it with the star and director of the movie.
So, my question to you. What was your favorite part or favorite thing about the movie?
My favorite thing about the movie? was, I think my favorite thing was when I said kind of in the beginning that it was a good jump scare movie that didn't rely on the jump scares. It used them to like put a cherry on top of a suspenseful moment, but it still would have been terrifying. I was thinking as we watched it, I kind of thought for a little bit right before it started that maybe this was going to be one of those movies where you never really got a good look at the monster, which it immediately was like, nope, here's a full-on view of this monster.
Yeah.
And how terrifying it is, which they also did a really good job. That's another thing I really liked, was the monsters looked very real and they looked very scary.
Mm-hmm.
But I liked that this would have been a terrifying movie if you had never seen the monster, in
That's
my opinion.
true.
It wouldn't have been as jump scary, it just would have been suspenseful and terrifying. If people had just disappeared or you had heard them.
Yeah, I you know what I think the scariest moment in the movie was for me? Was when you see the old man in the forest.
Yeah.
And he's just they're walking by and he's just in the background of the shot and he's just like
crazy
old grandpa in the forest like looking right at the camera like that.
That almost made me pee a little bit.
Because the whole time you're waiting for the monster and you're afraid of the monster, then all of a sudden you're like, crazy guy.
Yeah, which
that was unsettling.
They showed towards the beginning when he lights the fire and all the other fires pop up that there are other people living in the world.
Like also, what I was wondering is were those like connected fire lines? Were they all other people? Because he put out an SOS.
Well, yeah, but
so I was wondering how many of those were just connected fires, or how many were other people?
I think they were all people, and that was their way of saying who was still alive. I think that's what that thing was. Because he didn't really seem surprised by the dude. He seemed like
he was more just like, please don't.
Yeah, he saw, so almost like he knew the guy, and he's like, oh, his wife got killed. He's looking real sad.
Yeah.
And then he did the old man face smush that only very old men are capable of doing, where you're able to ball your entire face into about 2 square inches. And then he just screamed, and and it was like so that's why I was like, I think they knew that there were other people. They interacted with them to some degree, but that's why he wasn't like, oh my gosh, what is this guy doing here?
So I asked you about your favorite part of the movie.
Yeah, you did.
You said the monster. That was what you liked? Or did you say the way the jump scares weren't the sole measure of why it was scary?
I liked how they used the jump scares.
Yeah.
Because the jump scares felt earned. They didn't feel like, they just, okay, well, let's make it quiet for like 10 minutes and then make a really loud sound and that'll scare everybody. Like, the jump scares felt rewarding in a weird way. Like, something happened. The jump scare was something happening, not just a noise that was meant to scare you.
Yeah.
Even the raccoons, which was kind of like no, everything's fine. It wasn't fine. There was a monster out there and it's killed the raccoon right in front of the house.
That's true. Yeah, I agree. I think one of the parts I really liked, I think it had enough story to be, it had a compelling story. Because it's this, you're looking at these family dynamics. They've lost a son, and the one daughter feels alienated, and the dad is just trying to keep everyone safe, and they're trying to teach their kids. I thought the world they built around that family was really pretty good.
Yeah,
and it left more than just a scary movie. It was also about this family, and without any words or speaking, they were able to. Everyone kind of had their own personality and. I feel like for an hour-and-a-half movie with no speaking, they did a pretty good job of establishing who the characters were.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think they did a real good job of character building and world building. I like that all the world building was done through the newspaper clippings and stuff. Like they never addressed the monster directly,
or even what caused the monster, where it came from.
Yeah,
just that you got to be quiet to stay safe, and
you just saw kind of as you saw. It started out showing that big board of all the missing people, and then it seemed like as the movie went on, you saw the time progressing in the newspaper clippings.
Yeah.
Of people trying to figure out what it is, and then they figure out, it's sound. Bullets just don't do anything to them because they got the armor plating. It's them figuring out stuff until finally everything collapses and there isn't newspaper anymore.
Yeah.
But it seemed like it started out where people were just disappearing, so these things weren't like just invading and killing everything. It was, you know, they were a creature that existed, and then they just kind of overran humans.
Yeah.
Which makes it kind of more terrifying because it's like I felt like they were going for like this is something that exists. There just weren't enough of them that they were a real threat to humanity. But once there became enough of them, that they had to start hunting everything on the planet. Because if you notice, when they're out in the woods, there's like no sound.
Yeah.
Because the assumption is they killed, as we dropped the bike, they killed most of the living creatures. Oh, my finger's stuck up in the bike. Oh, it's right. Okay.
So there's a bike in this room.
And the bike fell.
And it just fell over.
It just went down.
And, well, it's on the ground now.
It is on the ground. Maybe you heard it, maybe you didn't. We'll find out, won't we?
Yeah.
Tweet at Cody.
Tweet at Opinion Havers if you heard the bike fall or not.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I think the world was built all in all pretty well. Let me ask you another question. There's one thing you would have done different or changed in the movie.
One thing.
Or,
You know, I actually thought of something that I would have done differently, and I'm trying to think of what that would have been, or like what it was that I came to my mind as I was watching it. Did you have something as I try to remember?
I might think of one as we go. I noticed one or two like little plot holes that I guess I want to ask you about because maybe I just missed the point.
Okay.
Here's the big one, and this is a big one. This is right at the end,
All right.
right when John Krasinski's character dies.
Oh yeah, he
right?
dies.
So his kids are in the truck.
Huge spoiler. Spoiler's
They're
gonna get real big on the screen.
Real
right
big.
there.
It's just gonna grow. It's already gonna be there, but then it's gonna grow really big for a little bit.
Yeah.
Anyway, he dies. He grabs an axe from like a shed, and then the monster's on top of like this shed or awning, and then monster goes for the kids. John Krasinski sacrifices himself. I mean, it's a big plot moment because he tells his kids that he loves them, specifically his daughter, who had always felt really bad about having given her little brother the rocket, right? So he says, "I love you. I've always loved you," and then he screams so that to give his kids a chance to go away. But before the monster attacked him, because he attacks him, hits him, right? What sound gave him away? Because he grabbed the axe, he was just holding the axe, he looked out. Monster stops everything, screams, jumps on him. What gave him away?
I think the fact that there wasn't any sound at all out in this middle of this field, because it seems like they can, like, just the act of him turning or maybe him picking up the axe or breathing is enough when they're like honed in on you. Like when they know where you are, which I actually kind of appreciated because I thought a lot like when she's in the basement, that's something that I didn't really like. When she's in the basement and she was just breathing and moving real slow, I'm like, an animal that hunts by sound would probably be able to hear her breathing until she got behind the water.
Right.
So that was kind of, I would point that more.
There were one or two moments where it was like, okay, what can they hear? What can't they hear? How? And it seemed like it wasn't always consistent.
Yeah,
in one or two parts at least.
Well, I think when its ear opened up early on and when they were out there and you could hear the cicadas in its ear.
Yeah, the clicking. Well, it was making a clicking sound. And that made me think of like, there's some blind people that can click and they can make the sonar. Just like bats make a screeching sound, they make sonar.
Yeah.
So for me, that was like, oh, it's adding more clicks to hone in on something.
Yeah, it definitely.
Like
I definitely noticed that how some of the sounds almost were like it had learned to use these loud, explosive sounds to scare things into making noise, and then you could hear it switch to like just the little like clicking along walls, kind of like what you're saying, and that's kind of what I thought the same thing that they were doing that. But I was talking more like there were bug sounds. Because you know how, like, whenever its ear opened and it zoomed in on its ear, like, it just amplified all the sound.
Yeah.
So you saw what it was hearing.
Right.
Or heard what it was hearing.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed like if you made a sound pretty much louder than the bugs, it was going to know where you were.
Interesting.
So him breathing heavy. And I just, turning, you'd get that kind of grinding of the sand.
Mm.
But I do kind of agree that seemed inconsistent with how it had happened with her and the baby.
Yeah.
But I also think they might just not wanted to have killed the baby.
Oh.
I think they shied away from killing the baby.
Yeah.
But let me ask you a question. Just a real quick thing. When she gets up and the basement's flooded, and there's the baby crib and the thing facing away from her looking like it's messing with something, did you think the baby was getting eaten? Because that's what I thought.
I didn't think the baby was getting eaten, but when I saw the crib thing floating, my question was, where's the baby? Did that get turned over? Is the baby in there? And so but I didn't jump to, oh, it must be eating the baby.
Yeah, I thought it was consuming the
is
baby.
Is it in the bin or the little wood box? Is it there?
Yeah, I definitely thought. Of course, I say it's inconsistent, like that him turning alerts it, but there was the sound of the water masking her moving. But one of the most terrifying parts of the movie was when it tucked up all up in itself and got real small and went under the water.
When it goes under the water, it's like, what's it gonna do now? You have no idea. That's one of the things is because you only know what they've shown you about the monster, and so when you're like, oh, it can swim, like no.
Yeah, and it could get real small, and it's like
just
like
it's
only like
into a little thing, and just
what is it, like 2 feet of water, and this giant like 9 foot tall monster just disappears under the water.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I'm assuming you were engrossed in the moment and didn't see what I did.
What you do?
I leaned back, and like again, I put my hands over my face, and I was just like, because I had to say something at that moment. I was so in shock, and I was just like, oh. F nah. Like immediately I was like, no, this is no. I was like, if that thing just starts bursting out of the water, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm out, I'm done.
Oh yeah.
I can't do this.
Man. I do think it. Yeah, so that was one little hole. There's another one that I'm not gonna be able to remember. One thing I did like, a lot of horror movies or thrillers have that things just went from bad to worse. Or, now we're in between a rock and a hard place. Yeah. And I liked the scene where she goes to do laundry.
Mm-hmm.
And then she was taking the laundry sack up the stairs, and it pulls up a nail. And then in the next scene, she's walking down the steps.
With a monster in the house, right?
That's
the
monster doesn't come because she had something in her hands. She stepped on the nail. That she pulled up, and then she dropped something, and that crashed, and that brought. So now, not only is her foot stabbed, she has to pull a nail out of her foot, but now the monster's on its way.
Yeah. Also, her water. That was after her water broke. She was going down there because her water broke, and the baby was coming.
Man, yeah, that was one of those where like, oh, things just got bad, and then worse, and then even worse.
I was surprised, and I think it was a good move. There was a difference between this and the trailer in the scene where she's in the tub. Where in the trailer it shows her. It doesn't. It's not It doesn't show if she screams or not because the sound cuts out in the trailer. So you're not sure if she just kind of like opens her mouth and like tenses up. Because I don't know if you've ever done that. I've done that before. Where you're just like you want to scream, but you like do the motion scream, but you hold in that scream itself. But right before that, you see in the trailer like one of the claws, which I think they changed the arms of the monster from the trailer to the actual movie because it shows like a hand go over the like fingers going like which then in the movie it's like a clawed,
right? Like
it's one giant spike instead of a hand. But I kind of liked that because it seems like that would be not believable that it would be right there. She would scream and then another sound and it would leave her to go check out that other sound.
Yeah.
So I liked that they changed that and just like it was in the house and then she screamed and it went off at the same time. So it went for the louder noise because it didn't hear her scream. It heard the louder noise because they happened right at the same time. So I liked that change. That would have been a part that I would have changed, but they already changed it.
Oh, there you go.
So there you go.
Wow.
But yeah. I don't know, because there's so many things that I kind of wish had happened differently, but I felt like the movie would have suffered if they'd happened the way that I expected them to go, or kind of wanted them to go.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted there to be a moment where John Krasinski's character, like, noticed, oh, it's her hearing aid, and then there could be a whole thing, but I think the fact that the the girl figured it out and she saved the family doing it was like a better decision than him figuring it out and doing it and being like an action hero.
Yeah.
So
I did really like that direction. I mean, it's, you know, the stereotype in the horror movie is, oh, the black guy dies first, you know, when there's like a black psychic, he dies first. But like the white male protagonist of the story is the one that died.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the family was able to survive as a result, which I thought was a cool direction. And like you said, the daughter's able to figure that out, and you see the family go on without Jim Halpert.
Yes, it was Jim. Him and Pam, it didn't work out, turns out.
I don't know. One thing I would have done different, I don't know if I had to have changed. One thing that was, I always thought, well, two things. Number one, the wide-eyed Jim Halpert stare. John Krasinski, every time there's noise, just him pops his eyes and he just looks like, almost to the point where I was like, it's a little much. Where he's like, big wide eyes. Which I thought was like, okay, yeah, I get it. But the other thing was, how many times in the movie do people do the shh? They do the shh motion, you know, they put their finger over their mouth. But it's like, everyone knows you always need to be quiet. But then it's always like, okay, I get it, we're supposed to be quiet, but everyone knows that already. So it was kind of being an odd reminder. The only way I would justify it maybe is it's sort of like them telling the audience to be quiet, right? And that's what it felt like. I felt like anytime you made noise in the theater, you're like, oh gosh, I'm being too loud. Like, I'm eating my Junior Mints, and I'm like, I just want to eat Junior Mints, but also it's real quiet.
Yeah, that brings up a good point. Why did we think this was a good movie to get snacks in?
I didn't think I tried to prepare. I got a bag.
You got a very crinkly bag.
Okay, well, at least here's the thing about Junior Mints. Here's why the bag is better.
Tell me this thing about Junior Mints.
Okay, the box, you can't fit your hand all the way in the box, so you have to tip them over and dump them. But if you're tipping and dumping, then it's the whole box and all the Junior Mints plunking over each other to get to your hand. So instead, I went for the crinkle, which I was able to minimize at certain parts. I thought it was a little bit better than the box, or at least it was easier for me to get it out. Then the box, your hand gets stuck in the box, you're like a raccoon, where you're like, I'm not letting go of these Junior Mints. Like, no way. Not letting the box win.
Yeah, which that happened to me with your bag. I grabbed a Junior Mint.
I wasn't holding the bag enough, and then your hand, you took the whole bag with you.
Yeah, I did. I took the whole bag. That was a panic moment if I'd ever had one.
You gave me the John Krasinski wide eye. Like, my hand's stuck in the bag.
I think it's funny that you associate his wide-eyed stare with like Jim, whereas now I think about him, I see him more as like the action movie guy that he's kind of become, unless it's Jim, because it's been so long since I've watched The Office.
Yeah. See, I don't know if I've seen any of his big movies except his action movies. I don't think I've seen any of the action movies.
Yeah, but I think of him like the Delta Force guy or you know, the SEALed guy from 13 Hours. Like, that's who I see when I look at him.
Yeah.
And so that wide-eyed stare, I was like, that it made it more unsettling that that's how I viewed him, because in my mind... You
saw him as this serious, collected
I saw him
hero.
As like, you know, one of the most hard soldiers in the world, and he's panicked by these monsters, and I was like, oh, this is unsettling. But
I thought
you saw him as just
a
paper salesman.
The moment in The Office when Jim is moved to the new office. What's the name? Andy?
Yes.
Andy's one of his new coworkers, and he's pranking Andy because Dwight's not there anymore.
Yeah.
And then Andy freaks out and punches the wall. No, that's not when he punches the wall. It's where he's freaking out because he pranked him. And Jim just like turns around and is like, oh no, like what have I done? But he does the same wide eyes where I was like, oh,
yeah,
you're in trouble. But I don't think it's necessarily bad, but it just, for me, every time I was like...
Yeah, which I think anything he does will probably, unfortunately, suffer from so many people seeing him as a paper salesman.
Paper salesman.
That's why I keep wanting to go back and watch The Office, and I'm like, it's probably not a great idea, because I want to see him as his character in his movie, not as Jim from The Office.
Yeah.
Because he did a fantastic job, I think.
In the movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think he did a very good job.
Like, I think he could protect me in a silent apocalypse.
Would you feel comfortable being one of his children?
I'd nuzzle up to him.
Yeah, I liked the moment they had with his wife when they put in earbuds and they danced a little bit to the I think it's a Neil Young song.
That made me very uncomfortable because it was very loud in the theater, and I was like, they're gonna get got.
I was surprised with how loud they turned, because there's always that sound thing they do where you hear the music a little bit, just like you're putting in an earbud. You put in the earbud and then it turns up. It turned up really loud, like especially loud.
Yeah.
On the sound, but I thought that was a nice moment, and they had the moment between the mom and the son when he's like, I don't want to go with the dad to do whatever. Later, they end up going fishing and they go to a waterfall, but she's like teaching him math, and she makes like a joke to help him feel better, and and then you have like the brother and sister have their moments together, and then the dad and the daughter, like everyone had their moments where they interacted with each other, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah, I thought going to the relationship between the daughter and the dad.
Yeah.
I thought they spelled it out very well because it cuts from the little boy getting got to they're making dinner.
Mm.
And it does like day 68 when he gets got to like day 427 or something.
72. You were close. It's okay.
Fine. It's fine. So it's like a year later.
Mm-hmm.
And the mom motions for the daughter to go get the dad, and she's just like,
she's
no.
like, I don't want to.
Yeah. Which I think the fact that she came in, she just stood there and she's like, dinner's ready, and he just kind of nodded, showed that like he is very aloof from her, and I think it showed that he was having probably some trouble because on some level he probably did blame her, and he was really trying not to, and trying to still love her as his daughter, but she also got his son killed.
Yeah, you can also see how he's pretty harsh on her. There's one moment where she's gonna walk down to the basement. I think it's the basement where he's got all his workshop.
Yeah,
with, like the radios and everything, and he like grabs her and is like, no, you can't go down there. And
yeah, it's also where the laundry is.
Yeah,
so everything was down there.
But you could tell he was,
Yeah, he didn't.
She's
trust
also the
her.
oldest, and parents tend to be most strict with their oldest.
Yeah, it definitely showed that he like had trouble trusting her, but when she goes down there later in the movie and sees that he was all the like hearing aids he'd been trying to make for her, and how much time and work and research he'd put into it to try to make it so she could hear again. Yeah. And that was a nice moment post him dying, that she was just a reaffirmation of his final words of, I love you, I've always loved you.
Yeah, and even the scene where he had just made a new hearing aid for her to try, goes to give it to her, and then she's like, it never works. Like, it doesn't work, it never works. And she's like pushing him away, doesn't want him to put the new hearing aid in. Mm-hmm. And the contrast of after he's passed away, she sees all that work that he had put into it.
Yeah. Oh.
A little jump scare from the closet for you.
Oh, I'm real jumpy right now, man. I'm not doing too hot. But yeah, I mean, it was just like, even the moment where they were at the waterfall and he showed him that he could be loud, you could make noise as long as there was a louder noise, and him teaching his son that, it was just, I don't know, I just found it all very interesting.
Yeah. I have a logistical question for you.
Right.
So there's a scene where they're on top of the silo.
Yes.
They light a flame to try to tell their dad where they're at.
Right.
And then the son falls through the doors. The doors break, he falls through, lands in a silo full of corn. Now, would you drown in corn kernels like that? Or would you be able to, like, breathe through your shirt and not drown through the corn kernels?
I think you can suffocate in them. They do work like that, I know. Like, it's like quicksand if you fall in there. Like, people die in those all the time.
Really?
Yeah. Because
you need, like, snowshoes to be able to walk on. You need more surface area.
Yeah.
Otherwise you just sink in.
Yeah. But I think it does work like that. If you don't move, just like quicksand, you won't disturb anymore and you won't fall in.
Yeah, and then he kept moving. He fell in, then he's like, I'm gonna swim around in here. You're like, you're fine. You're not even that far in it. Just sit there.
Yeah, which he didn't know. She knew. But it's not like she can shout.
She was trying to tell him. She was doing the ASL thing where you wave to like get their attention so she could sign to him, and he's just like, I'm just gonna panic down here and I'm not gonna pay attention to you.
Yeah. So then she jumps in and moves the door for him to get on top of.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know people do get sucked down and end up dying in those, especially because obviously this wasn't on at the time, but at the very bottom they have like a scoop, like a auger that pumps it up, and that'll suck you down real fast and grind you up in there.
Man, bad news.
Yeah, but I've just heard that from like I don't know from where, like just new like documentaries and stuff where they talk about farming, and they talk about that's just one of the dangers people don't think about. So I thought that was an interesting thing because it was something that could be a suspenseful moment and also be really quiet, contrasted by like the doors falling and swinging. So it allowed for like that door swinging to still be heard and be a suspenseful sound whilst he's panicking.
Yeah. I thought all in all the sound design of the movie was very good. And, you know, they had to pay such close attention because there's sound through the whole movie.
Yeah.
With the exception of the few shots where you're seeing from the daughter's perspective. But it's the ambient sound. It's the grass moving. It's the wind. In that scene with the silo, it's all the little kernels of corn shuffling. And so I thought, as far as all that went, I thought the sound design was very good.
Yeah, it was awesome. And even when you saw through like, or heard through like the daughter's ears, you could still hear it was just muffled. Like a blanket was over the mic. Yeah. For the most of the time.
Well, yeah, there were some where it was like that, depending on the hearing aid, and there were one or two where it was just like nothing.
Oh, yeah.
Which I thought was really interesting. Another thing about the sound design, I'm really glad I saw it in the theater, because there were the few moments where you could hear the monster behind you, to the left of you, and those scenes where you do see the monster, I mean, you can hear it where it is. With this theater surround sound, which I thought was really cool. They did a good job.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was very.
And that made it so much more suspenseful for me because a lot of we talked about like jump scares, and a lot of them it's like, oh, it gets all quiet. It's all quiet. Boom, that pops up there. But in this one, it was like, oh, it's quiet. Oh, I can hear him. He's over there.
Yeah.
Is he closer? I think he's a little closer now. You know, and there were some shots like that I thought were really good.
Yeah, that's what I was meaning by like those jump scares felt earned because you could hear where the monster was, and you had to like guess, oh, is it gonna jump up behind him? Oh, is it gonna be there? And then like the few moments where the monster stopped moving, it was real quiet, listening for him. Mm-hmm. And it's like that was real terrifying. Like there was a couple times. One was when the dad gets hit, like right before he gets hit, where everything's completely silent and the camera turns and you can see like the blurry outline of a monster in the background, and you're just like, oh no. No. Because that's terrifying when it's this super loud monster that's normally like Rah! In your face. Then it's just completely silent and the camera pans onto it. Wow. And it doesn't move, it doesn't like jump up or anything, it's just there.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh,
it's tense. You know what, I thought one thing really impressive about this movie. First Michael Bay film I've seen without a transformer and without an explosion.
Yeah, there
was no big explosion in this movie, and there was no lens flare. There's no like solar flare that they do where they like go into the sun. You see a little ring in the camera.
Yeah.
And those are all the Michael Bay things, and I'm like, oh great, Michael Bay's behind the camera. But I didn't even realize he produced this.
Yeah, well, it was in association with Michael Bay.
He had a producer credit.
Did he?
And in association with.
There was a lens flare though at one point.
There was?
I think when she's like laying down on the sand and gets up, there's a little bit of a lens flare there.
Oh, it wasn't too bad.
I almost wondered when I saw that, I was like, I wonder if they brought him in to like help them with the monster and make it look good, because he's known for being very particular and meticulous with like in the Transformers movies. And I think he was way worse in the beginning ones. That's why like the Transformers, they look pretty good. Mm-hmm. Like when the people are standing right next to the Transformer, it looks like a Transformer is standing next to them.
Yeah.
So that's why I was like, I wonder if he came on to help them be like, okay, this is how you can make something that CG look real and interact with people in a meaningful way.
And it does make sense too, because he directed 13 Hours, and I think that was John Krasinski's first like big like, hey, I'm a tough guy now.
Yeah.
Kind of. That was his first like big action movie, because he had been in films before, but I think that was his one where like, oh, he got a beard and he got buff.
Yeah, there were a lot of explosions in 13 Hours.
Yeah.
There were a lot.
I didn't see it.
They were very. Oh, I just bought it. Add it to the list.
I will reluctantly add it to the list.
It's a good movie.
I've heard it's decent, actually. I mean, I haven't talked to anyone who's like, oh, it was terrible. I just know that when it came out, it was at the same time as like the Hillary Clinton investigation.
Yeah, it's
about
all that stuff.
What bugged me about it is that like Fox News jumped on it. They were like, every commercial we play is gonna be for 13 hours. You're like, that is just shameful. Like, go back to like doing commercials for like Cash for Gold and like old people insurance.
Cash for Gold.
Anyway, but it just left a bad taste in me. I was like, why is this political like station putting so many eggs in this? Like, can it just be a movie? Anyway, but yeah, I'll see it. That was at the time when it came out, where I was just like, oh, why?
Yeah.
Dust is settled. Hillary's not president,
Yeah, she's not.
In case you're just joining us.
Hashtag get over
it. In case you fell into a coma at the end of the last election cycle, Hillary Clinton did not win. Donald Trump is in office.
Yes, he is. Yeah, he's there.
Fun fact.
He's doing stuff.
He's doing things. Eating cheeseburgers. Signing documents.
Anyway, last time I checked, this was categorized under movie podcast.
Oh, okay.
Not political podcast.
All right, I'm just saying Donald Trump eats cheeseburgers and he signs documents. Is that not true?
I mean, I'm not trying to get political here.
Neither am I.
I'm trying to talk about a little movie
Donald
called
Trump
A Quiet Place.
is a celebrity.
He's not.
Why can't we talk about him on movie podcast?
Because we're not doing a podcast about a movie he's in. Name such as
Home Alone.
Yes, Home Alone, which took me. I couldn't get it. I couldn't get the name, but that's the only one I can think of.
He's in a couple others.
Well, maybe we'll watch those. We'll do a Donald Trump movie marathon.
Episode. Movie marathon.
Tweet at Opinion Havers.
At Opinion Havers.
At Opinion Havers. Tell us your favorite Donald Trump movie.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll tell you how good Quiet Place is.
Sure will.
Yeah.
All right, what else? What else stood out to you from the movie?
Just the year later when they're living in the house and everything, just the little touches like them playing Monopoly and eating dinner and stuff that showed like they'd survived in this world, for over a year. Like they kind of knew what they were doing. They could have a relatively comfortable and normal life as long as they were quiet.
Yeah.
And it seemed like there were other people doing the same thing. Like I said, that's what I got from the fires. There were other people that had survived. They had normal lives. They just had to be quiet. And you'd be fine.
Yeah. I wonder, what do you think about this? Do you think John Krasinski, as far as like a father character, was he too paranoid? Was he too protective of the kids? Should he have been less strict on them? What do you think about that? Because it seems like from the kids' perspectives, they painted it where it was like they were kind of afraid of him. They didn't always agree with what he did.
Yeah, I can definitely see they went that route of like, these kids are like, oh, I know what I'm doing, especially the daughter, like, I'm not a kid, I knew and I'm like, want to be like, but you are a kid, and he saved your life so many times, and if you didn't have him, you wouldn't be able to hear if you were even making noise.
Yeah.
So like, I actually thought of that as we were watching it. Like, I was gonna ask you, how would you, if you had a family in this environment, would you act like that? And my thought was, I'd be way worse than him.
Yeah.
I would be probably more strict than him. Like, the fact that he actually like actively tries to teach the kids how to survive, I'm like, nope, you're going in the basement. You're not leaving that basement. You're locked in the dungeon. There's going to be a tiny little slot that I'm going to feed you through, and you're going to stay alive.
Yeah.
Like, I would be the psychopath that everyone's like, we got to kill this guy because he's worse than the monsters. But I'm like, I'm not letting my... Did you see that person over there get eaten? Did you see what they did to his son? He died.
Yeah.
His baby almost died. His baby, I thought, got eaten, but it didn't get eaten. It was fine. The baby was fine.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
One other moment I thought of in the movie that I thought was really good when they, you see that the mom is pregnant, and then you see they have like, it looks sort of like a crib, right? You have little stuffed animals, and they have a little oxygen mask, and they put the little baby oxygen mask on the thing, and they put the lid on it, and you're like, oh, it's like a box for the baby, because he has to be quiet. They have to put him in the box, like with the oxygen mask. I thought that was really good, like, visual storytelling, because you're like, oh, a little oxygen mask. I'm like, oh, it's in a box. Oh, there's a lid. Oh, it's for the baby. But I thought there were a few moments like that where it's like, they did a really good job of just like kind of showing how everything worked. Because they couldn't sit there and tell you. They didn't do like the thing sometimes they do in movies where at the beginning it's like all the radio podcasts progressing. You see it in like zombie movies where it's like the virus has infected and 18 dead in New York City hospital, like that kind of thing. They didn't do any of that. They had to show it.
Yeah. Like in the newspaper articles that we were talking about earlier. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's how they did it. Which I think was a perfect choice because the whole thing is you got to be quiet. So instead of using audio, they used print to do it. Which, yeah, everything was very visual based. There wasn't the only talking. Like when they were talking by the waterfall, just like them listening to music, I felt uncomfortable. Like, oh, they shouldn't be talking. This is making me freak out right now. Or when he's down in the basement and talking, I'm like, nope, shouldn't be doing that. That's a bad idea.
Yeah,
shouldn't be making that much noise.
Yeah. No, they did a good job using visuals and then using audio, like not dialogue, but audio to inform the story.
I also liked the little touch of when they were talking, and like obviously the people who can talk were mouthing as they signed, and it was just that such a natural thing of when you're mouthing words, like as you're exhaling, because you're mouthing things, the words come out real quietly.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's a good touch. Like they didn't just remove their audio, they just had them do that and then kept the audio of them like very, very quietly, like breathing the words.
And I don't know a ton about ASL, but I think people usually mouth the words as they sign them.
Yeah.
Or people, I think especially people that are bilingual.
Yeah.
If they speak English and ASL, but
yeah, because I think it helps a lot of people.
I was just gonna say if you're deaf, if you speak ASL and you know about it, tweet us at Opinion Havers.
Yeah. Not surprisingly, audio only podcasts are not very popular with deaf people.
Tell you what, if we get enough followers on Twitter, let's set a threshold. If we hit 10,000 followers on Twitter, we'll do this podcast, film ourselves doing it in ASL. Is that fair?
They have to be real followers, not Chinese bots.
Yeah, no bots. And we'll know because how do you tell bots from...
I don't want to give away my secrets, but I'll know. All right.
Tyler knows.
I'll know.
Real smart guy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's one other thing I wanted to talk about.
You know, you never did tell me how you would, like, what you thought about the dad and how he treated
the dad. What I thought about the dad?
Yeah, like, how would you, if you were a dad in a silent apocalypse?
You know, I think part of his I don't know if I would go to the point where I would say he had mania or paranoia, but maybe part of the reason he was so strict is because he lost his youngest son.
Yeah.
And I think part of that made him extra protective and extra determined through everything. Not only that fatherly instinct, but also knowing that he had already lost one.
Yeah, because it looked like he trusted them pretty much in the beginning. They were walking around the store by themselves, picking stuff off shelves. And then he's like, that's a bad idea. I shouldn't trust them because they're children. Yeah.
There was another really cool moment where the mom, it's when they're in that basement and it's soundproofed pretty well, and so they're able to talk for a little bit. And she was saying, my hands were free. I could have carried him. And when first she said that, my hands are free, I was like, is she talking about the laundry? Is she talking, like, what is she talking about? And it wasn't until halfway through that dialogue that I realized, like, oh, she's talking about her son from the very first scene.
Yeah.
She shouldn't have had him be there walking by himself. She's, like, blaming herself. Like, everyone blamed themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really what showed me, because it seemed like it was mostly the dad kind of blamed the daughter and she blamed herself, and then as it goes on you realize that he blamed himself, she blamed herself, the mom blamed herself, and the son was just like, you know, asked to the dad, do you hate everyone because this happened? You know, like we all everybody thinks it's their fault, and he kind of spells that out, that, you know, the daughter thinks it's her fault. Even if you don't blame her, she blames herself and she thinks you blame her. And the mom seemed to be going through the same thing.
And I feel like it would just, in that situation, it would just always be on your mind.
Yeah.
Because you're still living in silence. You're still hiding from the monster. And it's that same monster that took a member of your family a year ago.
Yeah. And the fact that like he tried to outrun it, tried to grab him, and he just was like right there and the monster took him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be hard.
Yeah.
But you were going to say something, and then
I have one last question.
All right.
What lesson did you learn from the movie? What do you think the message was?
I think the lesson that I pulled, like if I was going to pull like a moral lesson, was like thinking of it like as someone who would like to have children in the future. I just want to make sure if something bad happens and they at all feel responsible, that I just make sure they know I love them no matter what.
Mm.
Because something could always happen, and that they know that I'm there and that I'm comforting to them and not scary to them. You know?
Yeah. I think I would agree with that. You know, it's about a family who really they did all right. You know, they supported each other and learning to communicate, learning to forgive.
Yeah.
It's a big thing.
Yeah, because they all kind of came out of it. You know, the mom was scared and she wasn't scared at the end, and the dad was, you know, kind of angry and withdrawn, and he opened up at the very end, and the daughter hated herself and she kind of forgave herself there at the end. And, you know, they all kind of had this moment, like you said, those moments throughout the movie where they all kind of overcame their individual things. Mm-hmm. Except for the son, who just cowered in the corner with the baby.
I was going to say, I don't know about the son, because remember how terrified he was to even go outside of the house?
Yeah.
And then when his dad's getting attacked, isn't he the one that makes the distraction in the truck?
Yeah. He hollered, like when his dad first gets hit.
He hollers to lure the monster away,
yeah.
Which was, I think, a big step for him.
That was, you're right, that is a good point. I did.
Everyone grew in some way.
Yeah, well, the dad died.
Yeah, but he's told his daughter that he loved her.
He did.
That's a big deal.
And he was going to die anyway. Because we saw that same wound on the old lady. And there's really no way to fix that in the world they live in.
A big old gut wound like that.
Yeah.
It's going to get infected. I mean...
If you could even stitch it up. Like
if you could stop the bleeding.
Yeah.
And you're, a mile away from your house? And
yeah, there was no... He knew he was dead as soon as he got hit. Because those claws are giant. Like, you think about it, the claws are probably the size of your hand. Mm-hmm. Just as, like, one giant spike.
And that width, yeah.
Like, just gouged a chunk out of his side. So he knew he was goner. So I felt like it was, you know... It was a very noble sacrifice. And it felt not pointless. You know, like sometimes in those kinds of movies when, like, the hero character sacrifices themselves... I'm like, oh, you didn't really need to do that.
Much, so why'd you even...
Yeah, but there was, like, no way they were all getting out of there. Someone had to kind of...
all right. Yeah. No, go ahead.
Well, it's just when the son left, it was interesting that, like, he was the one... I think it was the son who was like, all right, Dad gave us the opportunity, and he, like, does the thing that he was practicing, or you see him practicing.
Yeah, that was a cool moment too, because when he said he's pretending to drive, and you're like, at the end you're like, no, he's practicing like their getaway thing in the truck.
And he immediately just goes, and the daughter was like, no, and obviously she didn't make any noise, but she just started crying, and he's like, we gotta go. Dad gave us like 30 seconds to get out of here.
Right.
And they had to get far enough away that the truck going along the road wouldn't track them, that they would still be busy with him.
Yeah. So, since we're already kind of talking about it, I kind of want to ask what your thoughts were on the ending. And this is one thing that I think is really difficult for horror movies, and it's one of the reasons why I like The Shining so much. But we'll have to talk about that when we see The Shining, since you haven't seen it.
Still haven't seen it.
You know, it's tough to end a horror movie, and even like Get Out, I think, which won Best Screenplay, is really hard to end it.
Can I stop you right there? Can I tell you something?
Tell me.
I haven't seen Get Out either.
Well, it's going on the list. That's a good one. But horror movies, I think, really struggle with finding a meaningful ending, because sometimes, I mean, there isn't enough story to inform a good ending. And the ending always just kinds of being like either A, oh, we're screwed, or B, like, we made it out. And that's sort of like the ending.
Yeah.
What did you think of the ending of this movie?
Well, it was less. So the thing I was expecting to happen was, the typical monster invasion post-apocalyptic movie where at the very end, like when everything seems dire, like, that's when the attack helicopter with what's left of the army shows up and they figured out how to kill the monsters. Like right as the thing had hit him and was about to kill him, like running at him, I expected a helicopter to gun it down. If I'm being completely honest. And then it didn't, which I was like, good on you. Good on you, A Quiet Place, for saying no.
Yeah.
No one knows how to kill these things. Guess what? The military's gone. It's just people surviving at this point. Right. I did think the ending when she loaded the shotgun was completely like. It's like it switched from, which I think is it was kind of cool and kind of like, oh, that could have been better. Because it switched it, in that exact moment, it switched from a horror movie to an action movie.
Yeah.
And then the movie ended.
Because honestly, as soon as John Krasinski's character, the dad says, I love you, I've always loved you. And then he screams, and then the kids get away, I thought that was the ending.
Yeah, that's what I thought the ending was going to be too.
Like, he finally said that, and they had that moment. And I do think it was kind of cool. They had the scene. The real ending scene was that the daughter figured out, it's the hearing aid. It's got the frequency that messes with them. The mom shoots the monster. Like, okay, they were able to kill one. You see more coming. But yeah, the way they could have done it, even that scene, just the way they ended with the of the shotgun. First off, I don't think it was that good of a shotgun sound. I thought it was a little high-pitched, a little sharp.
I think because it was... they recorded the actual shotgun. It wasn't like the low that you think of from a shotgun. I think they just recorded the shotgun making the sound.
Yeah.
Which is way higher pitched than you think of.
Yeah. So, I mean, that happened. Yeah, I mean, they could have done it in a different way, I think, that would have been less, like... Because it was almost this campy ending where it's like...
Yeah. But you know what it reminded me of a lot?
What?
Was the ending... I believe the movie and the book ended similarly... But World War Z.
Okay, I didn't.
You never.
That. I'm familiar with what it is. I haven't caught it.
So it's like this whole. It's more action than horror, but I believe the book is more horror than action, and
it's more like how would the world end in a zombie apocalypse, like a novelization of that.
But it's very realistic in like, people can defend themselves against these things, and then once they figure out how to stop the spread of the virus, then it's just a matter of, well, these are dumb animals. Humans conquered the earth from dumb animals once. We just got to do it again. So it shows the very ending of the movie, like all across the world of people fighting back against these hordes of zombies. And it shows like, okay, humans have held their ground. They figured out the problem, and now they're going to start pushing back. And then it ends. Mm-hmm. And that a lot of people didn't like the ending of the movie, which I think it's because there was another like weird ending bit to it that made it kind of weird, but I liked that, seeing that like, okay, they figured it out, now you see them pushing back, and I think that's what that was supposed to be, like, okay, they figured out how to kill these things, and now they're pissed because the monster just killed the dad and the husband, so they're going to start killing them. So
it leaves it, instead of leaving it on a note of like, oh, the dad died, made the sacrifice, he said I love you, it leaves on a note where it's like, all right, now it's time to kill the monsters, which is fine too. But
what it made me, another thing, the thing that struck me through the whole movie was if they were going to go the Cloverfield route with this, where I don't know if you paid attention much to Cloverfield in general, but there's tons of movies now that are all tied together as part of the Cloverfield universe.
Right.
And there's like horror movies, there's thriller movies, there's like
there's 3
sci-fi movie, and then there's going to be one that's like them fighting against the monsters,
like an action war, alien war.
Yeah. And that made me think like, oh, they could be seeing that and thinking, well, we could leave the door open by just doing this little thing at the end for, they could do a movie about, a cop that's just, like a bunch of people go missing and the cop's trying to figure it out, and then he figures out these monsters, and that's the end of the movie, is him finding the first monster, like outside this tiny town in Montana or something, you know? And then they could do one about like, oh, well, they start to clear out their area of the monsters, and then it just like spreads out from them of the monsters all being killed, and those, that would be an action movie, and one would be like like a
rom-com.
a rom-com. That'd be a bit
Or
much.
what? Oh, where a character falls in love with one of the monsters.
I mean, I felt like we covered that with them, or in the Buddy Cop. The Buddy Cop movie,
Yeah,
remember?
that's like the Buddy Cop
Yeah.
one.
And so her and the monster fall in love when she's of age, of course.
Of course.
Or maybe the monster is a kid. We don't know.
Yeah, the
We
monster
don't know
could
how
be
old the
4
monster-
years old, and
Yeah.
then it's kind of weird because she's like
13,
then
she's the
so it's like,
pedophile.
oh, that's weird.
But yeah. So I thought of that. I wondered if they were kind of looking at that angle of it where... Because I like the idea of a... Not a genre, like a...
One horror story being
A franchise.
Franchise.
That's what I was saying. A franchise
Yeah.
of being like all these different, completely separate stories, all in the same universe, around the same focal point, but they're all different genres.
Yeah.
Because I just think that's a cool idea, and I could definitely see them doing that with this.
And that's such a big push now with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's like, oh, well, let's take this one idea, let's make 6 movies based off of it.
Yeah.
And I will say, I hated Cloverfield, but I loved 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Yeah.
I loved that. I thought it was a great movie.
It was really good. I never saw the original Cloverfield because everyone said it made them feel sick.
It's so bad, man.
But I thought I watched 10 Cloverfield Lane with my brother, and we both just kind of looked at each other after that, and he was like, he looked at me and he asked, "Did you like that?" And I was like, "It was very weird." And he's like, "Yeah." And we kind of just sat there and stared at like the blank screen for like 15 minutes. And it makes me think kind of like this movie, like I liked this movie from the get-go, but the similar, I could see that same movie being made and the monsters up top were these things,
Yeah.
instead of the Cloverfield.
Can I tell you my fun 10 Cloverfield Lane story?
Tell
It's
me
not
the
that
story.
fun. We weren't planning on seeing it. Our one roommate, this is in college, our one roommate really wanted to see, I think it was Batman vs. Superman. And we were like, yeah, I guess we'll oblige you. He made us late. And it was like, we can wait an hour and a half to see Batman, or the show's sold out or something, or we can just see Cloverfield Lane. We're like, what is it? I don't know. Should we see it? All right. And so we went and saw it. So we didn't even know what it was. We had no clue, which was the point of the original Cloverfield.
Yeah.
Was they didn't release any details about it. It was just like, go see this movie. But yeah, I really like 10 Cloverfield Lane. But I'm also a big fan of Mary Elizabeth Winstead. So...
Yeah, it was a good movie. It very, I would like the idea of them doing a similar thing, but doing it better than Cloverfield is doing it. Because Cloverfield is very obviously like, they find scripts that they like, and they're like, okay, how can we tie this into the Cloverfield mythos? Whereas if they just, like if John Krasinski and the other writers were like, well, let's do this, and they wrote all the scripts, I feel like the similar thing, they could show these guys at the stupid Cloverfield franchise, like, look, this is how it's done.
Yeah.
This is how you make
Cloverfield.
This is how you make a bunch of different genre movies that have really nothing to do with each other, but you can tie them all together through one thread.
Other than they're all spawned from the same disaster or the same event. Interesting.
Yeah. Kind of like what people thought Fear the Walking Dead was going to be, and then it just ended up being Walking Dead 2, and no one watches it.
It's too bad because it's great. I haven't seen it. I don't know. Is it good?
No.
If you like it, tweet us at OpinionHavers.
I'm going to say no.
All right.
I'm gonna
Well,
tell you no.
as a wrap up, what do you think? Would you recommend it?
Oh, absolutely.
Not Fear the Walking Dead. Back on Quiet Place.
A Quiet Place. I would definitely recommend A Quiet Place. I would say it's worth seeing. If you can't go see it in the theaters, worth seeing if you have a friend that has like 7.1 surround sound and all that.
Oh, yeah.
Because like you said, that feeling of where it is. Like if you're in a room, you can hear the monster behind you or off to the right or to the left. Or even like at that place, you could even hear like if they were like above or kind of down and under the water and kind of things. Like,
yeah.
It's definitely worth seeing, even if you're not usually into horror movies. I would say I would like it because it's a good movie, which is hard to say for a lot of horror movies. There's not very many horror movies that are just good movies, I would think.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think it stands alone as a good story told in the horror genre. I would recommend it, even if you're kind of iffy on it. I think it's definitely worth checking out.
Yeah.
Give it a watch. Tell us what you think. Where can people find us?
YouTube.com/a bunch of numbers and letters, because we're not big enough to actually have our own URL yet.
No.
But you just search Opinion Havers on YouTube, or on podcasts.com. And I'm still working on getting us to iTunes one day. One day.
One day. Maybe soon.
Maybe soon.
And lastly, you can find us on Twitter at Opinion Havers. Tell us if there's a movie you want us to review. Tell us if you hate us. Tell us if you love us.
Yes, especially if you hate Cody or love me. Either one of those is acceptable.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. Have a wonderful day and enjoy movies. Right, Cody?
Yes.